and thank you for joining us. This is the last, number 6, the last webinar for Demystifying the Science of Reading, focused on comprehension strategies. My name is Erin McNeil, and I'm a professional learning specialist at Keep Indiana Learning, and my specialty is in literacy, so I'm excited to talk to you about comprehension strategies for literacy. You can snag the slides at this short URL or by using the QR code. And in today's session, we're going to go over these 3 ideas. What does the science of reading research say about comprehension? What issues prevail in comprehension instruction? And then finally, what does effective comprehension instruction look like? So to begin, let's think about the definition of comprehension. So comprehension is the understanding and interpretation of what we read, but in reality, it is much more complicated than that. There are 3 different things that we need to be able to do to comprehend. Number 1, we need to be able to decode what we read. Once we are able to decode what we read, we need to be able to make connections between what we have read and what we already know. So building that background knowledge is really important. And then we need to be able to think deeply about what we have read. So after students learn to decode words, they need to be able to make connections between text and prior knowledge. And we can activate prior knowledge by starting with some pre-reading activities. Here's some pre-reading activities that could help build background knowledge. We could use vocabulary words that paint a picture of the theme or events in a text. So instead of just using words that we identify as difficult or that are pre-identified for us, we could really look at vocabulary words that are important to the theme or what is happening in the text. We could also ask questions. KWL charts are very popular here, talking about what do I need to know, or how well do I already know it in order to understand this text. And then engagement. What questions can we ask that activate curiosity and interest? And we will talk about curiosity and interest at the end of this presentation. So let's hear from an expert about the role of background knowledge.
Going back to the 1980s and research on what it is that good readers do, derived from that was all of this work around various comprehension strategies that good readers enact. But the problem with the way that that got translated into instructional practice is that people taught those comprehension strategies in isolation rather than helping students with understanding that they're like tools in a toolbox and that you get out the tool that you need when you need it, but at other times you're not using those tools at all. On the other hand, what has been neglected is background knowledge, really building up the kind of background information that students are going to need in order to be able to access those ideas. I'm not talking about experiential kinds of things necessarily. Tell me about a time when you did such and such, but rather thinking closely about what it is that the content is going to require that students already know in advance of that, and then finding out whether students possess that background knowledge, and if they don't, finding ways to fill it in. So lots of comprehension strategy instruction that was too isolated and not enough attention on analyzing for background knowledge.
Okay, so let's take some of those ideas that she had and unpack those. So we can think of comprehension, instead of just doing strategies, we can start with background knowledge, what students need to know to understand the text. And then we can end with authentic ways of looking at how comprehension takes place. So what is our purpose after we read a text? What are we going to do with the information from the text, and what are we going to ask our students to do? So what is their purpose for reading a text? So some issues that prevail in comprehension instruction is a sole focus on skills or strategies, as we just heard in the video, with no authentic purpose. So we need to be thinking about the end goal. How can students apply what they read, and what problems can they solve? For example, I read this book, Artfully Teaching the Science of Reading, and my goal for reading that book was to create this presentation on comprehension. So I had a goal in reading it that I knew I wanted to convey the information I read in a presentation format. So effective comprehension instruction, project-based learning is one of the best ways to conceptualize what we do with the text we read. So by having an authentic task for students. And when reading has a purpose, students have a stronger desire to comprehend it. So other ways that comprehension instruction can be effective is by building background knowledge first, as we've talked about, the transformation of a story into a new form, authentic discussion, predictions, writing, and visualization. So let's talk about what some of those could look like. If you are transforming a text, you could use multimodal presentations to transform the novel or the short story into some different multimodal presentations, or even recordings of some sort. So we could create songs or movie trailers. You could ask students to create a display of mental images that they see as they're reading a text, or they could explain a process through reading the text. You could also use authentic discussion. So you could use questioning to generate real-life solutions to themes in a text. You could host a debate. You could create an interview or a podcast. We can also ask students to make predictions. They can use anticipation guides at the beginning of text to analyze the material that they are going to read, or discuss what they anticipate may happen. They could also, at the end of the text, contrast their predictions with the author's intended meanings. Writing is one of the best ways to talk about our reading. We could explore what we read by creating micro themes, which are short essays that explore what we have learned. We could motivate students by having them change the point of view or create poetry about the reading. Or they could clarify what they've read by creating journals, such as double entry journals or presentations. Additionally, visualization. So we could use mental images to clarify the information we have learned and increase understanding, and to build our tools of imagery. Thank you so much for viewing this webinar, and please share with us in this short survey what you thought of these webinars. We thank you for joining us, and we really appreciate your engagement with our content at Keep Indiana Learning. Thank you so much.